Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. So, I know the title makes it very clear that my dad was a cheating a hole, but don't judge a book by its cover. I was struggling for 14 years to accept a version of the truth, but it wasn't as simple as I thought, and now I have no idea who to trust or what to think of everything. That's why I'm posting my story in this subreddit. I'm too young to understand relationships and their complications and would like the opinion of the users of this subreddit. When I was young, I always used to think that nothing could break my parents apart. My parents were the most perfect parents out there, and we are the happiest family. But even after thinking that, I would catch them fighting sometimes. They would be arguing in the kitchen after I'd gone to bed or would sometimes come talk to me separately. But every time that happened, I would be extra happy because that meant the upcoming weekend would include extra trips to the amusement park and I'll get to eat whatever I want and play games. Now that I've grown up, it's easy to realize that it was all because they felt guilty for exposing me to those arguments. I was about 7 when the first time I saw my mom and dad get violent with each other. They were so mad at each other that they didn't even notice me walking into the living room. My mom was throwing things at my dad and was crying while my dad was breaking stuff around the house. I had never been so scared in my life as I was that day. I hid behind the sofa and started crying. I heard my mom ask dad about some other women, and she was asking why he did it. She was asking him what would happen to me and was continuing to throw things. When she collapsed on the sofa, a while later, she heard my sobs and realized I was there. She was horrified to see me there. She started apologizing to me for some reason and took me to my room. She stayed with me all night and just kept apologizing until I fell asleep. Next morning, nobody mentioned anything and things were going about just as any other morning. But I did notice my dad was missing. When I asked my mom where dad was, she told me that dad had gone away for a while and I won't be able to meet him for a while. I just quietly accepted whatever she said because I didn't want her to get upset like the night before. As I grew up and she kept running out of excuses, she finally told me that dad had left to live with another woman and I won't ever see him again. I didn't know what I could do in that situation and had no choice but to accept that fact. Now, 14 years later, last month, my dad suddenly texted me on Facebook. His text said that he was my dad. Of course, I knew it was him without him mentioning it. I had been keeping a tab on him for a few years now. Many times I tried to just get some answers by meeting him, but every time I lost my nerve. His text continued to talk about how he wants to see me and catch up. Ha, right, catch up, just so casually with a child he walked out on all these years ago. But I was really curious about what he had to say. I also had a lot of questions since my mom refused to talk about him. I wanted to know why he didn't at least stay in contact with me after his divorce. Why didn't he try to have a relationship with his son, even if he couldn't have a relationship with my mom? I ignored the text for about a week as I was deciding if I really want to hear him out. For all I knew, he was an a-hole who cheated on mom and left us to go live with another woman. But something pushed me to meet him at least once. If nothing else, at least I'll be able to close this chapter forever. So I sent him a text on Messenger asking him to meet me at a cafe near my college campus. His reply was pretty fast, and we decided to meet that weekend. I didn't know what to expect, but the things he told me was something I wouldn't have thought in a million years. When we finally met, he looked very awkward. He was looking at me strangely until I asked him what's wrong. He told me I resemble his young self awfully a lot. That made me extremely angry, and I was about to leave, thinking it was a bad idea to meet him. But he told me to just calm down because he isn't really the man I think he is. I told him if he means that he isn't a man who cheated on his wife and left his 7-year-old son to grow up without a father, then he'd have a hard time convincing me. He said that he realizes how things looked from my perspective, but not everything is as simple as I thought. He told me that he didn't leave him willingly, but that my mom kicked him out of the house. He told me that even after he left, he tried contacting me, but my mom fought for custody and was able to get sole custody. He wasn't legally allowed to meet me until I was an adult. I told him I don't believe in a cheater. He just laughed, saying that he isn't the only one who cheated. The relationship he had with my mother was doomed from the beginning because within a year of their marriage, my mom had an affair. But it wasn't a long one, and it ended before he could confront her. He was going to divorce her then, but she became pregnant with me before that could happen, and he decided to stick it out for me. But years down the line, he met someone he fell in love with, and when he told my mom, they had a huge argument. My mom was so furious that it was clear she wouldn't agree to be mutually separated. The result was that I had to grow up without a father. He told me all these things and expected me to do what? Suddenly accept him as part of my life? I was so confused and shocked that I just left the cafe without saying much. I haven't been able to bring myself to ask my mother the truth. My whole life, I believed my father was the real a-hole here. But now that he's told me these things, what does it make him? Not an a-hole? What about my mom? I'm extremely confused right now and don't know what I'm going to do. I'll leave an update once I decide to do something. For a whole month after meeting my father, I wasn't able to focus on anything. My studies were starting to suffer, and I even missed a lot of classes. The questions in my head from the time I met him was so distracting that I holed up in my room and didn't even come out for meals. I finally decided to do something about everything and fix this thing once and for all. That's why I gave my mom a call and asked her if I could come home for the weekend since there were things I needed to discuss with her. She sounded surprised, but told me that of course I could visit her. I'll be leaving for home this weekend. I really hope that meeting her and getting some answers would put my mind at ease. I finally met my mom, the person who raised me and cared for me all these years, and here I was visiting her to ask her if she's the one responsible for all the issues I had in my life. I loved her so much that I didn't want to put her in such a difficult spot, but I had to get the truth one way or the other. So I finally gathered all my courage and brought up Dad in the middle of our conversation. She instantly flinched and sat up straight. Her expression was clearly saying that the topic wasn't a welcomed one, but I had no choice other than pushing through. I told her that I met Dad last month, and he told me a lot of things that didn't sound right. I told her that he said she was the one who stopped him from seeing me and didn't allow him to contact me in any way. I asked her whether this was the truth because I had grown up believing Dad was a cheater and an a-hole who left me and my mom on his own accord, and if for some reason it turns out I've been blaming him for something he wasn't even responsible for, I don't think I'll be able to handle it. I told her that I actually found Dad on social media a long while ago, but never contacted him for her sake, and if it turns out she lied to me all these years, I won't be able to control myself and might do something I'll regret. I desperately wanted her to deny everything my dad had told me, but she was just quiet. She stayed silent for a long while, and when it seemed like she wouldn't say anything, I just said one last thing to her. I told her that I'm an adult now, and that man is my father. It's my right to know about him. I asked her to just talk about him once and answer my questions because my situation is so worse that it's affecting my studies. She finally replied to me. She said that everything my dad had told me was true. I couldn't believe her. All this while I blamed him for neglecting me when it was my mom who stopped me from having a relationship with my father. I was getting very angry, and that's why all I said to her was that I don't blame her for hating my father or for not wanting a man who hurt her to be in her life, but I do blame her for not being able to put aside her feelings so that her son could have a fatherly relationship. All that managed to do was give me a strained relation with both my parents now. I went into my room after that and the next day came back to my college. I don't think I'll be ready to confront my feelings anytime soon. But for now, all I can do is just accept the truth and try to separate my past with my present and future. NTA. Often it's seen that parents make the wrong decision for their child. All I'm going to say here is that your mother did the best she could while taking care of herself too. So it's better to try and understand her perspective too. NAH. I don't think anybody is an a-hole here. Things don't always work out the way we want, and relationships are delicate, complicated things. It's better to not think too much about the past and decide what you want to do in the future. I'm a 23-year-old female, and my sister in law, 23, is having a baby a few days after my school lets out for a 6-week break. A few months ago, I agreed to help watch her toddler while she's having the baby, with the help of my mother, who helped with sister in law's first child, and youngest sibling, who first child absolutely adores. Last month, I went to see my OB and was told the best solution to a medical condition that has caused me immense pain for a decade now. Think being bedridden for 3+ days each month and then in slightly less pain for another week is a hysterectomy. I will likely have to have the full 6 to 8 in abdominal incision, which takes at minimum 4 weeks to heal, but usually takes a full 6 weeks. Also, I won't be able to drive until I'm healed, and school is an hour commute each way. I can zoom into class, but can't make up work, which has required hours for me to graduate. I am out of school for a total of 6 weeks, so it would be in my best interest to schedule the surgery as soon as I get out of school so that I won't have to miss my internship or classes. However, when I told sister in law about it and how I would likely be unable to do all of the watching of her child alone, I could supervise my siblings, just can't do the heavy lifting of childcare. She said, "Can't you postpone the surgery until the summer so you can watch X for me?" She asked this even though she knows just how much pain I'm in and how that would cause me to miss even more school and work than I already will before surgery due to pain. Two key factors in this where I might be TA. First, I have a degree in child development, and she raises her child according to the parenting models I exposed her to during my degree, so she doesn't have to worry about how I discipline him when he has tantrums. Second, she doesn't have the best relationship with my mother and is worried that my mom won't discipline him the way sister in law and I do. My youngest sibling will do as sister in law instructs and has much more hands on childcare experience than I do. More background information that has recently added to my upset with sister in law. She proceeded to mock me and belittle me in front of my family for how I changed her child's diaper. First diaper I've ever changed, BTW, which I modeled directly after how she had put on his previous diaper, and went on a rant about all the childcare I'd need to know to watch her child for 3 days. Keep in mind that I won't be having kids and won't be living near her kids after this year, so I won't ever need to know this information again. So long story short, WIBTA if I went ahead with my surgery as planned instead of postponing it for 6 months to watch sister-in-law's kid while she has her second child? NTA, no. Her kids, her responsibilities, her uterus, her timing doesn't necessitate an emergency on yours. You need to put your needs and care first, and they're legitimate. She can go kick rocks. NTA, your surgery cannot be scheduled at a later date due to school and work concerns. No one should ever tell you that you need to force yourself to live in pain for their convenience. Adding that she mocked your ability to even babysit a child, you're definitely NTA in this situation. You made the commitment before you knew you needed surgery. She has other people that can help her out. Even if they aren't her first choice, there are also babysitters she could call and screen before she gives birth. Don't feel guilty and go have your surgery. NTA, her child isn't your responsibility. It sounds like you have already gone very much out of your way and above and beyond what a normal aunt would do in helping raise their sister in law's kid, because normally it would be practically nothing. Yes, get the surgery you need and take care of your health. Your mother and sibling can take care of the kid if they want to. It's also not their responsibility. My boyfriend, 30, male, and I, 26, female, have been together for 5 years and we have a baby together, 2, female. He also has 2 daughters from a previous relationship, 8 and 6. His daughters are living with their mom most of the time and come to visit once in a while, mostly due to his working schedule, not fitting with school hours, and not living in the same town, 1.5 hours distance. The girls also like their mom better because they often ask to go back after half a week with us. We do have a better living situation, bigger house, they live in an apartment, more money, etc. While their mom is not a very bad mom, she does miss a little authority on the kids as they always do what they want and never get punished. Clearly lack to show them some good manners and how to live in society, etc. But they never miss anything, whether it's love, food, clothes, school supplies, etc. My boyfriend and his ex do not have a good relationship, and he has been talking about taking the custody. Would obviously have to go through court because she would never agree to it. Now at home, he is a good father, but I do 90% of our home chores and baby related care. He works more than me, so it's okay. Also, he didn't want other kids, but agreed to have one with me because he knew what I wanted right away and that it would be a deal breaker if he didn't want any more. So I'm the primary caregiver. He likes to have time for himself on his days off to relax, aka not doing anything or going out to his friend's house. I explained to him that while I'm okay doing almost all the baby chores, that if his kids were to come live with us, that I would not be the primary caregiver to all kids for two reasons. One, his kids don't like me very much, and two, three kids is too much for me, and I know my limits, and it's even harder raising kids that are not yours. Well, for me it is. He would have to help me with everything and make it 50-50, or I won't agree to it. He clearly didn't like my response and told me it was not okay for me to do it for my kid and not wanting to do it for his. So he got mad at me and said that I only don't want to because I don't like his kids, which is not true. How they are raised is not how I want to raise my baby, but there is not an ounce of hate. Sometimes I feel like a horrible person for saying no, but I don't want to ruin my life by being overwhelmed either. NTA, honestly, not to be rude, but you don't sound like you'd be a very good stepmother. The kids are probably better off where they are, especially if your husband isn't going to be their primary caregiver. They already don't like you. You sound like you don't like them. More money and a bigger house does not equal better childhood. If they are in a loving situation with mom, that is where they should stay. NTA, he wants full custody. Why? Because he doesn't think his kids get punished enough? They can be taught manners. They may not comply, but if you show them, they will learn it and eventually use them. Seeing as you'll be doing all of the work, there's no way in a million years you should agree to this arrangement. He likes the life he has with you doing all the work. Why shouldn't he want full custody? He won't be put out because you're there. The kids will be miserable. You'll be miserable. And by extension, he'll be miserable. Oh, and the actual mother of the kids would be miserable. Why is he pressing this? NTA, it's unfair to you to take in three kids and for him to continue the work social life that he currently has and won't shift this 90% home care that you have when his kids come into the picture. It really should be 50-50 because of that. Those aren't your biological kids. Thus, he should be required to at least some responsibility. And honestly, it also comes down to the court system and how they look at the situation of what is best in the child's interest. If he's not willing to help you more around the house than he is now, he kind of really shouldn't be going for custody in the first place. It'll be on you at home dealing with three kids while the court system will only review the biological parents, not extended families and their lives.